We're now recording.
Hey, sound check 1, 2, 3. Sally, is that coming through okay on your end?
Sound is good and video is good.
Very good. All right. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. For the record, my name is Gary McLean, and I'm the hearing examiner for San Juan County. And you all are here today for the Wednesday, June 28, 2023 agenda of matters that are the responsibility of the hearing examiner to hear through a public hearing process, which we're going to do today, and then take under advisement and issue written decisions on the items that are on the agenda today. We have 2 items on today's agenda, and I will note that it is now 10, we started at 10:06. Our start time was at 10, but transportation was difficult, and my apologies. There was fog involved, but we are here and able to start. And we have 3 participants to my left, and we have Colin Maycock, who is with the county, to my right. And online participants, let's see, who do we have? Do I see, is it Mr. Mullaney, who's counsel for one of the applicants?
That's correct, Mr. Examiner. Good morning.
Good morning. Okay. And I see Mr. Otis. Good morning, Mr. Otis. How are you today?
You're on mute, Jeff.
That's okay. He waved, and I know Mr. Otis. What there? It looked like you're ready. Okay, you've got audio when you're ready for it.
I am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good morning. And I don't have on my glasses. I see is
Kim
it
Middleton?
the McInerney's,
Oh,
Julie Wilson. Is it McKinney?
McNerney.
McNerney? Okay.
Yes, Victor. Good morning, Mr. Hearing Examiner. I'm representing Mr. Saperstein, whose case is slated to be reheard in July, and then I'm also attending as a member of the public today.
That's fine. Thank you very much. And then somebody, is it Kim Middleton? All right. So, all right. All right. So in the room to my left, you want to introduce yourself?
Tanya Lisitskaya. I work with Rob on all the permits for the properties.
And I'm Rob Conavier, Tanya's partner.
Okay. All right.
And I'm Lincoln Gable, general contractor and builder.
All right. All right. So we have 2 matters on the agenda today. The process I'll follow is I'll call them up one at a time, and we'll just follow the listing they have on the agenda today. And for each matter, I note that the first one is probably going to be continued. I'm just going to acknowledge that on the record. But for the second item that is presumably going through a public hearing today, this hybrid hearing platform where a number of us are here in the hearing room and a number of people are there using the online hearing platform. So however you're participating, the process we'll follow is I will ask staff, and that will be Mr. Maycock today, to summarize their staff report, because county codes require that they issue a staff report to the hearing examiner beforehand, and I take it that the applicants have a chance to review that. Mr. Maycock's made a recommendation on the matter with some recommended conditions, and I asked him to bring up anything new since the staff report has issued. And then after staff has made their presentation, I will turn to the applicant team. And the first thing I would like to hear from the applicant team is, if you reviewed the staff report, do you take exception or have any differences of opinion regarding any of the analysis in the staff report or any of the recommended conditions? So make that part of your presentation at some point. Doesn't have to be first, but cover it at some point when you do, because the applicant always bears the burden of proof. And then after the applicant team has had a chance to speak to the merits of their proposal, I will turn to any members of the public who might be present either here in the hearing room or online that would like to offer comments. And then after all people have had a chance to comment regarding the application, I will turn back to the applicant team to provide any response or answers that they feel necessary. And staff will be able to respond to anything as well. As the hearing examiner, I reserve the right to ask questions of anybody at any point during their testimony. And if you're being repetitive or redundant, I might ask you to move along to cover something that we haven't gotten to yet. I'm not going to put any time limits on people today, but it doesn't look like we have a wall or a screen full of a bunch of people. So I will ask people to be reasonable in the time that they use. And I reserve the right to cut you off if you're being repetitive or something we've already covered is getting repeated. So anyway, that's the process we'll follow. So procedurally, Mr. Maycock, are there any procedural issues that I need to be aware of before we commence the hearing?
I'm aware.
And to the applicant representatives, are there any procedural issues that would prevent you all from moving forward with the hearing this morning?
Nothing that would prevent us, Mr. Examiner. I did want to point out there was one document that didn't appear to get into the staff report. That's the joint use dock agreement.
And I'll let you
and-
do that when we call the matter up. But you're prepared and ready to move forward today, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And to the representative of the Henry Islands LLC, was that Ms. McNerney? Did I say the name right?
Yes, Mr. Hearing Examiner.
Okay. And you're prepared to move forward?
We would like to continue the hearing until July 26th.
All right. Well, let me call up your matter first. The first matter that's on the agenda today is an application for a shoreline substantial development permit. The applicant name on that one is Henry Highlands LLC. It's an application for a shoreline permit to authorize a joint use dock on Henry Island. The file number is land use-22-0193. Mr. Maycock, you were the principal staff person on that matter. What's the county's position on that item today?
So the applicant has requested that the hearing be continued to July 26th. The county agrees with the applicant's request, so we don't have any objection to continuing it.
And Mr. Maycock, I apologize. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're giving today in the hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. Okay. And Ms. McNerney, Mr. Maycock has stated that you all requested, your client requested an extension, continuing it to the July hearing date, and you said that earlier before I called the matter up. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, Mr. Hearing Examiner.
Okay. And so I will grant the request, and this matter will be continued, and I'm saying that here on the record so we don't have to reissue all sorts of written notices and publications and things, because this matter was advertised for hearing today, and anybody that wanted to offer comments could come forward today. So let me just go ahead and do that. Are there any people online or in this hearing room that came today hoping to be able to offer comments regarding the Henry Highlands LLC joint use dock shoreline substantial development permit application? Is there anyone that wanted to offer comments on that today? Noting that the matter is being continued, so you may want to hold your comments for them, but if you came today and wanted to talk today, I'll let you do that. Is there anyone? I'm seeing no one. To staff, do you all see anybody, or did anybody phone in that I don't see that wanted to comment on the Henry Highlands matter?
I haven't received any further phone calls. We have received written comments on it, and they were aware that the hearing date was today, but it was going to be continued. But
Okay.
I don't see them present.
And I did not see anybody respond to my call for speakers, so I will close the public comment portion of the hearing on this matter, noting that we will reopen the record, reopen the hearing on the hearing docket for July the 26th. So the Henry Highlands LLC matter is continued to that date. On that topic, Mr. Maycock, is this one of the matters where there had been an application maybe a year and a half ago, and I apologize if I get my timelines wrong, COVID clocks and all, and there was an appeal, and then I believe the appeal was deemed moot because an application came in. Is this affiliated with that matter or
Yes,
associated with it?
yes, both this application and that one,
Okay.
subject to appeal 22004,
Which has been withdrawn.
which has been withdrawn.
And I believe I received a written request for an order that would acknowledge that it was withdrawn, but I will note here on the record that that appeal has expired, and if I need to, I will issue a written order that says that by appeal number, but I took it with the letter from council that they were withdrawing the appeal, that the matter was closed. So there's been no one's raised an issue that the appeal is pending. It's not. It's been dismissed. It was withdrawn. by the appellant because it was moot. So, okay. So we're done with the Henry Highlands matter. And next I will turn to the public hearing for the second item on the agenda, which is also an application for a shoreline substantial development permit. This again is for what's called a joint use dock. It's for a collection of properties that are located on Orcas Island. And the applicant is named the Robert T. Is it Coney Bear?
Connie Beer,
Like Connie Beer.
correct.
All right. Robert T. Connie Beer, trustee, and that is the applicant team on this matter. And Mr. Maycock issued a staff report before today, and I received that, had a chance to review it. And I did hear there's a comment that there may be an exhibit that needs to be added, so I'll let the parties deal with that. Anybody that's going to be speaking on this matter who's not a member of the bar and council, you will do so under oath. So if I forget to administer the oath this morning, just remind me, point of order, and I'll put you under oath when you choose to speak. All right. So, Mr. Maycock, I'll turn to you on the Connie Beer application.
So this is for land use 22-0173. This is a application for joint use dock. The joint use dock will serve 4 parcels, 2 of which are shoreline parcels, 2 of which are upland parcels. The site of the proposed development is on Orcas Island on the western lobe, approximately facing the Rosario Resort. A public notice and a CEPA MDNS was issued on May 10th. We received 2 comments on the CEPA determination. Those are exhibits 2A and 2B. 2A was a comment from the neighbors, which indicated a concern for the dock's impact on wildlife inhabiting the Rock Islands, approximately 450 feet east of the proposed dock. 2B was concerning the size of the proposed ramp, and it was from WDFW, and the size of the proposed ramp was inconsistent with their approvable plans. The applicants responded to both. Response to the WDFW comment was to revise the scale of the plans to be consistent with their requirements. And the applicants also had a wildlife survey done of the rocks, which was issued on or submitted to the county on June 23rd. So that will need to be added as an exhibit.
Which one was that?
It was a wildlife survey of the islands that was submitted on June 23rd, so it doesn't have an exhibit number yet.
Okay.
It was literally received it on Friday last week.
Yeah, I was just going to look at your staff report to see what number you were at. And just give it one.
6 is the last one.
So this would be 7?
Sure.
New exhibit 7, and again, what's the caption of it?
It's a wildlife survey.
Submitted on behalf of the applicant?
Yeah.
And what firm?
Jen J.
Okay. And the joint use agreement item? 8. So the joint use agreement that counsel for the applicant referenced, that's been submitted
Yeah.
and it wasn't in the staff report.
Wasn't in the staff report, and I mean, I have to check to see if it was approved by the prosecuting attorney.
So the joint use agreement proposed will be exhibit number 8. Mr. Mulaney, any objection to adding those 2 exhibits?
No, Mr. Examiner, and I believe there's a revised critical areas report that shows the plan that made the ramp 7 inches narrower that we probably should put in just for completeness.
The updated site plan was received on June 9th, and that's at exhibit 2C.
Okay,
The updated biological impact assessment is exhibit 2D. And that was also received on June 9th. So both of those are in the staff report.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Baycott?
So those helped address the SEPA comments. Then the county also received 2 project comments, which are exhibit 4. 1 project comment, exhibit 4. The commenters identified 7 issues of concern that focus on 2 different areas. First one was questioning whether the proposed facility meets the definition of a joint use facility because it serves a single extended family. And then they reiterated their concerns about the potential impact of the proposed facility on the wildlife inhabiting offshore islands. There is a fuller response in the staff report, but essentially county's position is that the department had determined that the project should be considered as a joint use because the applicant owned multiple shoreline properties, and developing a single dock to serve them is consistent with the goal of reducing the porcupine effect of each shoreline parcel instead of having each shoreline parcel have a single dock. The size of the proposed dock is consistent with the size limitation for a 2-user joint use dock in 1850-260, because the proposed dock is approximately 1,200 square feet, and the maximum allowed for a 2-user joint use dock is 1,400 square feet.
This would be small.
This is smaller, so it's consistent with that. So it's consistent with just having 2, so a 2-user.
So if we had 2 shoreline parcels approach us with a joint use dock,
It would be consistent.
there's a size limit.
Which is 1,400.
And this project, which
It's
purports
less.
to be for more than 2 parcels, some of which aren't waterfront parcels, the size of the proposed dock is still less than what would be allowed for 2 shoreline properties, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. And I picked up on that in the staff report. I just wanted to make sure I read it right, and I appreciate that. Okay. My notes have to catch up. Okay, who would like to take the lead on behalf of the applicant?
I will speak a few words, Mr. Examiner, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Otis since he's the resident expert on things. But what I wanted to do was,
You want to introduce yourself and let me
yes.
know. I know you're on paper, but here we are. We've got a recording going. So let folks
Sure.
know who you are and how you're affiliated with the applicant team.
Okay, my name is Patrick Mullaney. I'm an attorney at the Schwabe Law Firm, and I'm representing the applicant and helping them through the land use process.
Okay. And Mr. Mullaney, unless you're going to be offering factual testimony, I traditionally do not put attorneys under oath because you're obligated to tell the truth and be honest in front of a forum like this today. So unless you want to be a fact witness, you may proceed.
Thank you, and I do not want to be a fact witness. What I was just going to briefly do, Mr. Examiner, was outline the kind of the legal framework that was used in developing the application and give you some citations to the prior decisions and things that were used working with Mr. Maycock and the county planning director and the assistant prosecuting attorney, Mr. Wiley, to develop the proposal to ensure that it meets the requirements of the county shoreline master program and implementing regulations. And for background, we looked at a number of documents, and those included the county's March 12, 2007 policy regarding the definition of joint use
Mr.
dock.
Mullaney, you're breaking up. Mr. Mullaney, your audio is breaking up kind of bad. I don't know if you've got a hiccup. Can you hear us
Okay.
okay?
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me
Yeah,
now?
your audio really started breaking up, and I don't know if that's because you weren't directing your voice to where your microphone is. You may want to retry that.
Okay,
So
is
you
this,
back
be-
up.
is this better now?
Yes.
Okay, I apologize. Um, what I was saying was that we we looked at the county's March 12th, 2007 policy regarding the definition of joint use docks. We looked at former prosecuting attorney Randy Gaylord's October 28th letter to attorney John Lynn that addressed joint use docks. And we looked at the Hoagland case, which is PST 0017008, the Con case, and the TJ Dynamics Group case. Con is it's PSJ 0012004. Yes.
Mr. Mulaney, it's all in the record somewhere in writing.
It is not, but
Do you have a written statement? Because I'm never going to be able to keep up with you if you were hoping I was going to write down citations.
okay, that's fine. I can provide it, but the gist of it is, Mr. Examiner, what we ended up doing was, in addition to doing the typical joint use dock agreement between the private parties, we entered into a covenant with the county. And the significance of that is that the covenant protects the 1,230 feet of shoreline by precluding any future dock applications that might result from future subdivision of the property. So it also mitigates the dock because no matter how many future parcels may be created on the shoreline or upland properties, the dock is limited to the use by a total of 4 parcels. So the covenant gives the county the right to specific performance and injunctive relief. So, and it binds the 4 parcels in perpetuity to 1 dock and a total of 4 users. So, and then the staff report on page 21 kind of explains this process and how the community development director synthesized the things that I was discussing, the covenant and the prior case law and policy directives, and utilized San Juan Code 1810-030 to review and resolve the proper interpretation of the code. And as it says in the staff report, as Mr. Maycock noted in the staff report on page 21, the director, following review by the county's attorney, determined that the joint use dock covenant would render the application consistent with the shoreline management plan and the code. So that's kind of the legal background for how the framework was developed to protect the property and ensure that the shoreline requirements had been met. So, and with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Otis to give you the background on the factual issues.
Before you move on, Mr. Mulaney, I thank you for your summary of the framework that we're working under here. I did read the covenant. I did read the staff report. I saw that it appears you worked very carefully and closely with the prosecuting attorney's office in developing that. And then with the joint use agreement that is coming forward, which I don't have yet, is that document that the applicant is putting forward here, has that been vetted, in other words, approved as to form by the prosecuting attorney's office yet, if you know?
I do not know. What I do know, Mr. Examiner, is that when we develop the covenant, and you'll see that in the covenant, the covenant and the joint use dock agreement are made to mesh together. And so the covenant references the joint use dock agreement, and the provisions of the joint use dock agreement are meant to carry out the intent of the covenant, if that makes sense.
And
So they dovetail.
did they refer to one another?
Exactly. Yes. And they dovetail together so that the provisions are consistent.
And Mr. Mulaney, you've probably seen it 100 times in other jurisdictions, but not, San Juan County Prosecutor's Office is not here in front of me today. It's not uncommon in jurisdictions around the state where I have an agreement as important as that. If it moves forward to approval for a permit and the agreement is a condition of the permit, it's not uncommon that that condition is crafted by the examiner to require submittal, review, and approval by the prosecuting attorney's office as to form. Would you have any objection to that?
Not at all. I mean, we've worked closely with Mr. Wiley, and I'd be happy to do so in the future.
Okay, all right. But based on your representation that the proposed joint use agreement is fully consistent with the covenant you proposed, you don't think there's any problem with the proposed joint use agreement?
That is accurate. Yes, Mr. Examiner.
Mr. Mulaney, one last question I didn't want to forget. Must the covenant be approved by the county council or the county is authorized to sign?
My understanding, and from Mr. Wiley, was that it did not need to be approved by the council, but I'm not 100% sure on that, to be frank about it.
I'll
So,
defer to the prosecuting attorney on that matter. Okay.
but he approved the form of the covenant, and I believe that it has the planning director signing. I have it here somewhere.
It's in the record, the covenant.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. It was approved, Mr. Examiner. Let's see. It just says grantee, and then it says approved as the form by the prosecuting attorney. I suppose the county's the grantee on it, so it isn't like there's a transfer of a property right from the county. So it's a right being given to it. So perhaps that's why it didn't need council approval.
I don't know, but I know in some jurisdictions they go, thank you for trying to give me that landfill that we don't accept.
No, you're right.
You appreciate what I'm saying. There are
Absolutely.
some things that are best not received. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'll look at that. All right. Are we ready to move on to Mr. Otis?
Yes, unless you have any more questions.
No, I just wanted to cover all the legal stuff while you were on the screen there. So, okay.
All right, very
All
good.
right.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Otis. If you'd raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Corey?
So just want to give a brief update first. Wanted to state that we concur with the staff report. Don't have any issues or questions about the report. We did the HPA issued by WDFW that was issued yesterday, and I did send that to Colin. Have you received that, Colin?
Yeah, I received it this morning, but I haven't sent it to the,
Okay, so just,
I mean, typically, we wouldn't include an HBA in the staff report, but I mean, I have no problem sending it on, but it was just,
Is this the hydraulic permit? Ms.
Yeah.
Otis?
yes,
Go
that's
ahead.
correct. Yes.
So, would you like to submit that as the next numbered exhibit?
I would, I think it'd be good to have it in the record.
I agree. So would that be number 10?
so,
We added 8 and 9. I'm right there.
no, we're at 8, so that would be 9.
Oh, we
We
got
added
7,
7,
8, this will be 9. That's right, okay.
Okay.
So Mr. Otis will, any objection, Mr. Maycock?
No, that's fine.
All right. You said from WDFW?
It was from WDFW, yes. Mhm.
All right, so that will be exhibit 9. If you already said you transmitted it to Mr. Maycock, so you two verify that and then just make sure before the end of the week, I get copies of the true and correct version of the one you want in the record, okay?
Okay, sounds great.
Cool.
We have an application before the Army Corps of Engineers. That's I've had initial discussions with the Corps and everything is looking good, but it's moving slowly through the process. And same thing with Washington Department of Natural Resources. Initial conversations, everything looks pretty good, slowly moving through the process. Briefly, just wanted to mention the reasons for the unique design, the L shape of the design. When the dive survey was done, there were a few areas of kelp that were indicated, and those, when you look at the site plan, those are indicated in sort of these bluish green bubbles, which identify at least a minimum of a 25-foot buffer between the dock and kelp areas. And so that's the whole reason for the L shape of the dock. We also extended it, the float out to the seaward portion of the float, starting at -10, goes from -10 to -22, in order to minimize shading and also to minimize sedimentation and prop wash. The dock is fully graded, pure ramp and float. There was a critical area report done, and that determined no net loss to all critical areas. We've also included a fairly extensive planting plan, and that's driven primarily by the nearshore calculator that's required by the Corps of Engineers and National Marine Fisheries. What that does, though, also for on the county side, is that it ends up. I'm sorry if there's noise out there. It ends up benefiting shoreline ecological functions and water quality, and then ultimately enhancing nearshore habitat. And that is a condition of approval on this permit. Total area of the dock, as Mr. Maycock mentioned, is 1188 square feet, which is under the size of a 2-user dock. And then just briefly, as Mr. Maycock mentioned, there were a couple comments one was about the possibility of impacting seals and black oyster catchers on a small island that's located about 450 feet off of the seaward end of the dock. Biologist with GenJ, Kim Middleton, who is online here, did a survey, and her findings were consistent with those in the staff report, which is essentially the dock is outside of the Fish and Wildlife Habitat Conservation Area for the island, which is 200 feet. It is not identified as a seal haul out, and it's not identified as a nesting area for black oyster catchers. And if there are,
What we've got now is the new exhibit number 7.
yes, that's the exhibit number 7. Mhm. And if there are questions about that, Ms. Middleton is online and she could respond to those questions about the survey. That sums up my presentation. Be glad to answer any questions.
Going back to the, and I apologize, the calculator, what is it, the nearshore plan? Go back, it's something that the Army Corps is putting you through now with marine fisheries. Give me the term of art again.
Yeah, it's called the Nearshore Conservation Calculator. And it's quite extensive calculator.
I'm
Pardon me?
familiar enough to be dangerous with the, with the term. I wanted to make sure I got it right.
Okay.
The question I have for you, Mr. Otis, is you mentioned that you have the HPA, you're working with DNR, looks good, but they're moving slowly. Army Corps, moving slowly, looks good. But the Army Corps, it's my understanding, is the federal agency that would decide, this is your final mitigation required to comply with the Nearshore Conservation Calculator, or something to that effect. Is that your understanding?
That's correct. In terms of potential impacts that might be generated from the dock and mitigating those impacts. There, of course, I'm sorry.
So on behalf of the applicant, are you comfortable with the proposed condition? And I'm sorry, I could pull it up, but I want to talk to Mr. Otis, but a condition that basically says you've got a site plan today, but the Corps could change that site plan because they could say, we need more mitigation, your calculation doesn't generate enough, and we have another pending in the county in another island and stuff like that. You're not a party to it, I don't believe, or a consultant, but the applicant on that one, after the hearing, submitted a change to the site plan because it was pretty substantive about, they're having to take out something in return for being able to put something else in. So in this context, because we don't yet know what the Corps might do, is the applicant amenable to a condition that says the site plan will be as proposed or as finally approved by the Corps with whatever conditions they apply, so long as it doesn't expand any of the facilities? In other words, it might make you plant more, it might make you restore more, but it can't make the dock bigger.
We would be agreeable to that.
And submitting a final copy so that the site plan could be accurately, enforced and monitored over time. Because we both know that the Corps could change what's in the package today.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
Mr. Maycock, is that the type of condition you recommended?
Yeah, I mean, just given the experience with the other one where they just came in late and had to do that.
Completely change the site plan? Well, that whole side of it.
And yeah, then it was just,
And that's okay. It's actually better record keeping to have the official site plan instead of, you have to look at 3 different documents to figure out what it really is. Okay. Anything else from you, Mr. Otis?
No, nothing else unless you have questions. Be glad to answer those.
I'd like to commend you, your application materials. I know there was a lot of back and forth, but easy to read and easy to follow, and thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Package that's prepared well, and Mr. Maycock too. Well done on the staff report. It's like, okay, I understand the issues. You've all done a good job there, so well done.
Thank you.
At tip. All right, if that concludes the applicant's presentation, we can move on to any members of the public, our interested parties who might be online or in the room who wish to offer comments regarding the application. If there is someone here online, I don't think anybody in the room, but if there is someone online who wants to speak, unmute your microphone and state your name, and I'll put you under oath and hear your comments. Anybody? I didn't hear anyone. To Linda, who might be monitoring things, and I don't see anybody who's phoned in. There's no telephone number on there. So this will be a last call. Is there anyone online, on the phone, or here in the room that would like to offer comments regarding this application? Please turn on your microphone and introduce yourself if you'd like to talk. Okay. Hearing no one, I will close the public comment portion of the public hearing for this matter. And I will say that I've asked my questions. Is there anything else that the applicant would like me to be aware of before I close the hearing today, or any clarifications you all feel you need to make?
Speaking from my side, we don't have anything, I don't have anything I'd like to add. I'd like to go back to Mr. Mullaney to see if he has anything to add.
No, Mr. Examiner, I believe you have a complete record and understand the legal and factual issues.
Okay. Mr. Mullaney, you heard the two things that were kind of hanging out there. One is what happens to changes that are implemented by an Army Corps approval? We don't know. And the other thing is the final joint use agreement approval by the prosecuting attorney's office. I'm comfortable drafting conditions that address those two, but on behalf of the applicant, would you like an opportunity to submit proposed conditions on those topics?
I think that I'm fine with you drafting them, Mr. Examiner, because I mean, those are pretty standard things. So I think we'd be, unless you want me to draft them, I'm happy to.
Some people in your chair, they're just biting at the bit to write it themselves. So, okay. Nope. Just to let you know, yeah, we have other things going, and it'll probably be substantially similar to what the other people are looking at in their conditions too. So, okay. All right, Mr. Maycock, is there anything else that I need to be aware of on this matter?
I don't believe so.
Just for housekeeping's sake, let's make sure we know what's been added today. We have a new Exhibit 7, which is the wildlife survey. Okay. We have a new Exhibit 8, which is the proposed joint use agreement.
The dock agreement as opposed to the covenant, yes.
Okay. And just to clarify for the record, Exhibits 2C and 2D addressed new information that Mr. Mullaney wanted to make sure was part of the record. It already is. 2C is what, updated site plan, and
Yep.
2D would be the updated biological impact assessment, something to that effect.
Yep.
Okay. And you were going to transmit to me electronic copies of the new exhibit. And we had a new Exhibit 9, which is the HPA from WDFW. And you can transmit those. And could you please post them on the list of exhibits, add them as exhibits so that
Yes.
if people are following this on your online platform, they can see the new exhibits there with all the others. Okay. And if you can get that done by the end of the week,
Yep.
is that okay?
Yes.
All right. If there's nothing further on the matter, then I will close the public hearing and thank you all for your participation today. Take it under advisement, and I will have a decision issued. My hope is sometime in the month of July. So with that, you all have a wonderful upcoming 4th of July holiday, and we'll see some of you all in July. And take care. Good journey.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner.
Thank you, sir.
Patrick, thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Jim. Thank you so much.
Turn us off. Yeah, well.
Is the, I see exit.
Yeah.